Oh, let's talk workplace safety now, and accidents on the job. Very common, unfortunately, especially in construction. They can cause very serious injuries, often career-ending injuries, disfigurement, disability, and sadly even death. Well, the Federated Mutual Employers Assurance Company has undertaken a number of campaigns over the years to promote safe work practices, but it's not always adhered to. Well, let's talk about the practices first. I'm joined by the chairperson of FEM's Health and Safety Committee, Mr. Sanjay Munnoo, making time for us this afternoon. Sanjay, hello to you and good to have you on eNCA. I would like to first of all just find out how big of an issue is work safety in 2023, because there are so many health and safety officers. There are all kinds of legal processes to go through before you can even enter a construction site. I wouldn't have imagined it's that common. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Gareth. And good afternoon to your listeners as well. So certainly from a FEM perspective, we provide workmen's compensation to the construction industry under license from the Department of Employment and Labour. And we've been doing so since 1936. So certainly from a statistics perspective, construction is very dangerous. We find it quite hazardous in terms of the incidents that we experience and the claims that we see coming through at FEM. So from an FEM perspective, we cover just over 6,000 employers and just over 300,000 employees nationally. But unfortunately, when we look at the statistics, so since 2000 up until 2022, there were just over 1,630 fatalities that we have covered. So whilst we're seeing that, from a South African perspective, we have advanced legislation in terms of occupational health and safety, but certainly a lot more needs to be done in terms of mitigating and preventing accidents on site.
And I'm quite sure you would agree with me that any death or any injury in a workplace is one too many. I think that goes without saying, Sanjay, but that sounds like a very high number of incidents. Is that abnormally high when you compare that period that you gave me to, say, years in the past?
It is certainly, we've seen over the years, there's been a decline in terms of the accident frequency, and we believe so that it's been as a result of, good health and safety prevention measures. That's also, we find a number of industry bodies as well, in fact, in the Department of Employment and Labour as well, in terms of the inspectors going through to sites and auditing employers has made a huge impact. But it's not just a South African issue, it's a global concern as well. When we talk about the ILO statistics that are released on an annual basis, and you'll find, there were 2.8 million people who were killed at the workplace globally, and then this year it's reported that about 3 million people will have lost their lives through injury or diseases as well in the workplace. So definitely a major concern in terms of health and safety. So we believe certainly that prevention is better than cure.
No, absolutely. I don't think anybody would disagree. And I want to talk about your campaign, and I hope I say this correctly, Safe-tember. Sanjay, help me understand that as well, because when we did a story a couple of weeks ago, a big focus of ours on eNCA. We went out to a big mining company, gold mining company. I had to go through 2 hours of lectures before I was even allowed to walk around the mining area as well. In your mind, as you tell me about Safe-tember, which is coming up in a couple of weeks, I imagine, where is the responsibility really? Where's the negligence? And how do you determine this? Is it because the employer has not explained the health and safety properly, or it's because we have employees who are just not paying attention? How difficult is it to determine who's at fault?
Certainly a good question, but also quite a challenging one as well, right? So I think when you talk about the workplace and, some of the initiatives that we started rolling out, which I think is going to have a huge impact, not just, at the current time, but also in future. So we've started rolling out mentorship programs, especially for, women and youth and persons with disabilities, especially from the rural areas. And we feel that health and safety training is the key component of it. In fact, some of the initiatives from the strategic perspective at FEM, we're talking about health and safety as a curriculum in the school, because what we believe is that as a student, for example, will go through the different grades, I think health and safety needs to be inculcated into the curriculum. And so when they get into the workplace, they understand the risks and the challenges that are faced on the work site. And I think especially when we compare it now with construction, which is definitely very labor-intensive sort of work, that these employees will be, definitely a bit more familiar in terms of the risks on site, and hopefully will then mitigate and reduce the number of fatalities and accidents.
How open are companies to taking advice from an organization like yours? Because many companies, they've got their HR processes, they've got their health and safety officers in place. They probably think they're doing a very good job until it goes horribly wrong. How open are companies, large corporates generally, especially in the construction industry, open to guidance, advice, and I suppose, if it comes to it, the enforcement of what you do?
No, they're very open. And I must say, when we talk about the health and safety fraternity and the practitioners within South Africa, it's absolutely amazing, especially when we talk about through COVID-19 and certainly the initiatives that they had implemented to mitigate, COVID-19. But I think definitely they're very open, including employers as well. When we talk about some of the larger corporate entities, the first topic at their board meetings, for that matter, is health and safety. And I think prioritizing the workplace, the worker, and the employer, from the employer perspective, we feel that leadership has a key component in terms of encouraging workers to work safer. So, talking from an FEM perspective as well, we're quite encouraged from a board perspective as well, where health and safety certainly does take priority in terms of not just at FEM, but for the construction industry as well. So certainly we do see a lot of encouragement out there.
Just briefly, as I say goodbye to you, you mentioned working very closely, as I imagine you would, the Department of Labour, the laws of the country. Just in closing, perhaps a warning to the construction industry employers to perhaps up their game, because I would imagine there's quite a big gap between the labour laws, health and safety laws, and what we're seeing on the construction floor, isn't it?
Thanks, Gareth. So certainly we do work closely with them, but just to make mention of our ongoing campaign titled Safetember, which drives the vision of health and safety in the workplace. We launched it in 2015 with the support from the construction industry, and the campaign uses the month of September to shed light and focus on occupational health and safety within the construction industry. And each year we partner with different speakers, and in fact, we're very fortunate that we have the Chief Inspector from the Department of Employment and Labour, Mrs. Millie Reuters, who will be presenting at this conference, and it takes place on Wednesday, the 28th of September in Johannesburg. So thank you very much, and we appreciate this from an FEM perspective as well.
And I'm sure we're going to touch base with you again closer to the 28th of September. So we're kicking the tin a little bit further down the road. No, you can't kick tins on construction sites. It goes against health and safety. But we will talk again, no doubts, as we get to the end of September. Sanjay, thank you very much. Indeed, it's important for the construction industry because we know that any kind of injury or death on the workplace can actually bring a construction site to a standstill. That means job security, etc., etc. Sanjay Munnoo from the Federated Mutual Employers Assurance Company. It doesn't sound important until, as a company, you need them. It's almost